Welcome to Rauta's opinion videos. This time I'm doing a little bit of meta talk about reviewers and reviews in general. The exact theme being metal music, of course. That's why we are here on Rauta channel. Now, this kind of topic is very stupid in a way. I mean, why would anybody talk about reviewers, which are kind of like the people who are not kind of needed, not respected, but yet again they have their place in music, metal or otherwise. And since I'm being one of those review guys, annoying as hell or likable by some, well, I kinda am forced to talk a little bit myself how I ended up doing this stuff, what justifies me doing the stuff, the reviews that is, and review guys in general, girls as well, you know. So before I start, I'll better take a sip because after all I have this alcohol problem, right? And by the way, this time I'm enjoying some Brewdog beer, Chetras from Brewdog Fanzine #1. Just became a fan and ordered, and this is the second beer from the first box. Really recommend it to you if you like a beer hipster thingies or hipster beers, whatever. Well, so let's talk about reviewers. Now, Entombed sang in a song in kind of early or mid-90s in a song from Wolverine Blues, that Who Examines the Doctors. And this shall be my kind of a headline when we talk about reviews. So who reviews the reviewers? And that came kind of in my mind a few months back already. So I have this list of to-dos in opinion videos and whatever. So this came to my mind when I got some feedback like, who is this guy to, review other people's doings? How can he, review albums? Why this guy is supposed to have any opinion whatsoever, because I mean he's just a one bald douchebag or something in that sense. And okay, some of you already have the knowledge of who I am, why I'm doing this kind of stuff, because I already did that long introduction video like who is this guy and why he is doing all that stuff. But because most of you haven't watched it and never will, short recap is in place. So meanwhile, my original history in metal music is, just, metalhead. Long hair, listening to metal music, being a fan. Simple as that. Then had my own first band, then another, and blah, blah, blah. And then after, being this guy for so long, since, early 80s or mid 80s, I don't exactly remember the exact year. However, I ended up doing reviews, or actually prior to that, I did a kind of a descriptions for a Finnish small metal label and kind of an online shop. I did these kind of a descriptions, writing a kind of a description about these CDs, LPs, whatever they had for sale, and that was related to kind of my day job, and which that at that time was in a video game company, and I did product descriptions for the website. That was already late 90s or early 2000 something. So back then, not that common, but anyway. So I have had already by this time, kind of a writing habit. And I've been always kind of like strong in opinions to the extent that some people are really annoyed because I'm the type of guy who doesn't just, shut it, but it rather goes explaining this and that, and saying opinions, being vocal about it. And some people hate it, like I said, but then again, some people are more listeners than talkers, and I'm more the talking guy. This kind of led me to writing about albums. Like I said, always been a fan of music, considering it a lot, listening to it a lot. I mean, since I was like, even, before teenage, I was listening to a lot of music. Back then, just it was limited to very few bands. But anyhow, it kind of taught me the value of music. So whatever I was doing, basically, I was listening to music. And then when I get older, I had more time to listen to music. And so it eventually led me to writing about music, doing random interviews every now and then, but mostly focusing on reviewing stuff, because I had a job where I could just, basically listen to music all day, write my opinions down. I was, and still am working by a computer, so I was always able to, put down those notes about how this album feels, in my opinion, what kind of production it is, what the vocalist is doing, how these songs sound, how I feel, the atmosphere, and what is going on, the album in so many ways. And so I ended up doing, album reviews. At first, I don't even remember how many of those were. This was something like 2002 when I started. And but I get, because of this description work I mentioned before, I ended up writing for a Finnish metal site called imperiumi.net. And then I briefly did some English ones for Imhotep fanzine, and also then I had a briefly some kind of a metal website called Inquisitionist, for which I also wrote English reviews, and there was only like thumbs up or down kind of reviews, and also some interviews which were not done in a typical way, but anyhow, that's beside the point. But Imperium became kind of my home. Then Inferno magazine, which is still the kind of most meaningful paper magazine related to Finnish, well, not Finnish metal music, but written in Finnish and doing all kinds of stuff about metal music. So I started writing for that as well. I had to drop Imhotep at some point, and Inquisitions basically died because I was the only guy doing that. I had some people who wanted to, do that, but they never delivered me, I guess, a single review. So it kind of just faded away or got killed. Yeah, but Imperium got, growing because it was already a successor for a magazine called Suomi Finland Perkele, which was kind of like somewhere between mainstream and underground. So kind of like more, more professional in a way than, say, typical black and white fanzine with Xerox copies and all that stuff. But Suomi Finland Perkele was, glossy paper and kind of a bigger. I'm not gonna compare it to Metal Hammer and Terrorizer and stuff like that, but you get the idea. So when Suomi Finland Perkele kind of got buried, it died for various reasons. Imperiuminet started, which was then again purely web only, metal site. Interviews, reviews, geek reports and whatnot. And I ended up doing basically all of them. But the reviews, like I said, they were kind of like my butter and bread. That is to say, that is what mostly took my time, writing stuff. So eventually I started, kind of doing a little bit, but eventually it led to me getting most of the death metal and black metal stuff in Finland, at least for Imperium, sometimes for Inferno as well. But of course I had colleagues to cover those areas, which is good, always. But anyhow, to this day I have written thousands of articles, and that also kind of led me to do Rauta channel, because, in Finland there are basically no active YouTube channel related to metal. Well, there are some, but I know they are not that big, and I also wanted to do it in English because, well, with our team, we decided it's better to go international than just, talking Finnish, because Finland is so small and Finnish speakers are not that big, and I'm already doing those in, written format. So why not to make a channel where we can, offer the material, mostly interviews, but I mean in numbers. It's always like reviews, get more, and then opinion videos and whatnot. So the big question is like, how did I become a reviewer guy? How did I, justify myself? How does anybody, any reviewer there, man or woman, young or old, how do they justify, being this kind of a judge when it comes to good or bad music? How are they even, existing in there? And that is kind of a difficult question because, as most of you know, I hope all of you know, there are basically no schools where people are like, going for a few years in order to become a reviewer. And there are many of reasons. First of all, it would make no sense. Reviewers, at least in Finland, they don't get paid. Unless you're writing, I don't know, maybe some mainstream newspaper. And I'm talking, just like everyday life. Like New York Times kind of mainstream newspaper. But localized stuff. They don't get paid, at least when it comes to metal media in Finland. You don't get paid to do reviews, which in a way makes a lot of sense. And then again, it doesn't, because it makes that everybody's basically a hobbyist. There are some exceptions to this, in order to get paid, but when that happens, it's not metal media. And the reason is very simple. Metal media in places like Finland is way too small to actually make money. So it's not like anybody's in for the money or fame or glory or getting laid with the groupies. I mean, reviewers don't get groupies. Or then I have been totally left out in that group. But anyhow, my point is, this is a hobby or lifestyle or whatever you want to call it, of sheer enthusiasm based on fandom and stuff like that. Now, every now and then I get, negative feedback. Not that often, but that happens sometimes. Like, why do you hate that album so much? How can you say about this and that about that band? I mean, who are you to judge this band and you go, play your own songs and all kind of stuff. Kind of like really silly comments that just because they don't, agree with you on some album or whatever, they get you called by names and, ad hominem start flying and all that stuff. I remember like 10 years ago when I was writing a review about, back then, the new Venom album, Venom, the black metal band from United Kingdom. And when that album, I gave it like 3 out of 10 or something, like really bad, because it was really bad. I don't even remember what that album is anymore, but it was one of those Venom albums which are not that good, really. And there was some fan actually sent me an email about like how wrong I was about the album and the band and blah blah blah. Of course, I wrote him back. He never wrote back to me anymore. But I mean, like, these kind of like fan sending negative feedback kind of things are quite rare, in fact. And usually they don't make much sense. Sometimes I get, here too on the channel, like, you don't just get this music. What is wrong with you? Don't you just get it that you just like call this album mediocre when it's like pure greatness, like best black metal albums ever? Like, I mean, it's just a matter of opinion. These are matters of taste. These are not absolute truths. I mean, how can there be a truth about a release of art or product or whatever you want to call music? Entertainment or art, doesn't matter to me, really. I don't want to, put them against, but some people get pissed when, their music is called a, entertainment or product. They want to have them as art, which in a way is true. But I mean, they are, totally coexisting very well. So these kind of things happen. And people get pissed when you just, trample on their #1 fan band, and more often I actually get, good feedback. By good, I mean like, hey, thanks for review, now I know this band, or thanks to you I got to know this album, I didn't know this and this was out, and so forth. And that's always a nice thing to hear. I mean, I don't live for the compliments, because well, they are nice. I mean, I'm human after all. They don't mean much in the sense that I'm just a messenger guy here. All reviewers are basically messenger guys or girls. They just tell you, okay, here's the CD and you should know that it's out and the style of this album is black metal or heavy metal or whatever. And this is better than that because of what things X, Y, and Z. Sometimes it's songs, sometimes it's vocals, sometimes it's production, sometimes it's just, whole package, all lyrics or just something. But I mean, messengers are all reviewers basically are. They are not to judge that you should like this album or you shouldn't like this one. That's beside the point. I'll always come to reply the same way basically when reviews get done. I'm just stating the facts here, what this album is, basically made of. 5 guys out of some small city in Louisiana, United States. This is their second album, founded in 2011. Now they are doing their sludge, and it's not very good. And the last part is not the truth part, like the factual part, but that is like just my opinion. But you can't deny the facts. This band has existed like 7 years and it's their second album. And they are 5 guys doing that kind of stuff. I mean, those are all facts, right? And reviewers are just, passing that information along. Because with this huge, vast amount of information we have going all the time, all around the world about this and that. I mean, it's easy to miss information. Even reviewers and active reviewers like me, having all the time dozens and dozens of CDs waiting to get listened to and reviewed and whatever. There's still too much coming music all the time. And I want to go, and listen to them all. I know it's impossible, but I want to do my best in order to get that stuff through. I want to find those jewels and recommend those albums to people. They're my recommendations, I know, both in good and bad. But, I mean, what else there is to do? I mean, if there was no critic at all in a review, then it would be basically an advertisement, right? Then it would be just, listing the facts and not saying anything in constructive way about an album. That would make no sense. I mean, if you want to see an ad, you just turn the page and see that, okay, there is new Dimmu Borgir album, it's just, stunning masterpiece with awesome production and blah, blah, blah. That is no criticism, that's an advertisement. And all big bands got that. But what about underground bands? What about those mid-level bands, which are in the gray area, not mainstream, not big enough for, to be there, not exactly underground anymore? What about them? They deserve attention too, right? Especially if they're good, right? At least in my opinion, they do. So that's why reviewers are out there. They are to say, and maybe, just maybe you should, give this one a shot because it totally deserves. This might not be the next Iron Maiden or Dark Throne, but it's definitely something, good that actually deserves your listening time. Because after all, music fans, I'm not talking about the people who just listen to radio and think that's, listening to music and being a fan of music. But I mean, the collectors, average fans that actually go to gigs and festivals to see bands live, and the people who actually listen to music, not just, what Spotify recommends or YouTube recommends, but actually people who want to find cool CDs, LPs, tapes, and, whatever, and listen to them at home or while traveling or, going for a jog. I don't know, I mean, they need the recommendations from somebody. It might be just, like big sister or big brother or, classmate, workmate, band member. It might be just some random guy, you get to meet at a festival or gig, but you need to get those recommendations someplace. Reviews are just as good, especially if you find a reviewer who just happens to share at least a little bit the same taste with yours, fascination of music, your taste. I mean, for example, I read a lot about video game reviews. I read movie reviews. I read TV series reviews. Of course, I read, music reviews as well. And I try to, filter from all that huge pile of information. I try to filter the necessary information for me. I'm not interested in judging these guys. I mean, if they are, don't agree with me when it comes to, like, say, movie or an album review, I don't care. But if I can, just filter some useful information, like, basically go cherry picking, trying to find those jewels out of the big piles of poo, then it has worked for me. Recently, for example, I actually bought a new amplifier, one with Wi-Fi's, Bluetooth, Spotify's, multi-room connectivity and all that stuff, because my old one was like some 10 years old, and it didn't have any, like for example, wireless internet connection. But now I do. I can basically stream music from this computer to my amplifier and all that stuff. And why I'm mentioning this is that I was reading actually an AV magazine, a Finnish one, and there was this kind of a amplifier, review or test session, and they were all like quite good in my opinion, based on stats and the reviews. So I got the one that pleased to me the most. So it kind of helped me to find the upgrade I was looking for, but I couldn't have done it that easy without a review. Also, when I'm trying to, figure out like what game I'm gonna play next on my console, or what kind of movie I want to watch or whatever, I find those reviews really helpful. And still, yet there are lots of people who spend their time reviewing reviewers, being a critic to a critic who is already a critic to something. And to me, it makes very little sense. I mean, I don't agree with all my colleagues doing reviews and whatever. And some do better job than others, that's given. I mean, some people just are more in the game about reviews. But to actually spend time reviewing these people and, complaining that they are not doing their stuff properly, or they, god damn it, have different opinion than me. They are, saying that this album is very good. Meanwhile, I think it's crap. Or the other way around. I mean, why would I waste my time on that? I mean, I don't know if this, doing this video is a waste of time, or watching this. Who I am to judge? I mean, like, I'm too biased to do that. Anyhow, my point is back to the Entombed quote, who examines the doctors. Who cares, really? If you don't find reviewers interesting or useful, stop reading, stop watching, stop listening to, and go find those releases, whatever the stuff is, music, movie, whatever. Go find them yourselves. If you think you can be better on yourself, if you can do it by yourself, do it by all means. That's very, very good. But then again, if you have ever found any piece of information by a review person, or just, a close friend of yours, useful, because he or she actually had a viable opinion about, say, a CD, and then you ended up liking that very same CD, then you have actually listened to this, opinion of this reviewer person. Doesn't matter if it's official or not. Like I said, there are no schools where people go to, to learn how to be reviewers. Reviewers are as much music fans as are band guys. But there is this old saying from a friend of mine that he said that reviewers are just, musicians who failed. I think there is partial truth in that, even though I know he was just, provoking. But I mean, maybe it is like that. Maybe they or us review guys actually didn't get to do music. I mean, I still do. But in a way, I still think maybe he's right. Maybe reviewers don't have the, skill set, the kind of a patience or understanding how to create music. So they rather go reviewing other people's music instead of making that by themselves. But then again, if that would apply, does it also apply to movie makers, video game makers, people who criticize, arts from statues to paintings or whatever? It's kind of lame statement in that light. So instead of being a reviewer here, I let you decide why reviews are useful to you or useless, and what makes a good review. I mean, what makes a review a good review? I don't know. Actually, I do, but I'm gonna tell you here. So, way too lengthy video once again. Time to take a last sip and say goodbye. Goodbye, and looking forward to hear your comments, that is, if you get to watch this video to the very end. Rauta signing off. See you soon with more stuff to come your way. Bye.